Welcome to the Get a Life podcast. Explore survivor stories. Uncover the hidden truths. Join our X-Cult conversations. You matter, and so does your story.
Happy Sunday, everybody. Sorry I've been a little MIA lately on the PBCC videos, but I'm back. I kind of just got a little off. Wasn't feeling it. Just, I don't know. But sometimes you get just that little oomph that kind of reinvigorates you. And aside from the fact that a number of you have been messaging me and things like that saying, hey, we want your videos again, which thank you, by the way. I do appreciate it, even if I ignored you for a while. But right now, there is a 5-part series that is happening. It's in the Fargo Forum, the Grand Forks Herald, the Jamestown Sun. So far, just parts 1 and 2 have been published, but this reporter did a really great job on a piece about the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, right in the area where I grew up, like in Neche, Pembina, St. Vincent, and it is really, really in-depth and really good. And it kind of just got me back in the mode again of, hey, it's time to start talking about this again. It's not just going away, and whether I talk about it or don't talk about it isn't going to change whether current brethren talk to me, look at me, wave at me, anything. So, might as well keep talking about it. So, anyways, I've been sharing a bit about this on my social media. If you have a subscription to any of those publications, you can read this article. If you don't have a subscription, I don't think it's super expensive, but I also get life is expensive, so I totally understand if you don't want to subscribe. But I will keep trying to just share what I can on social media so you can pick it up on Facebook or something like that. In the meantime, I'm going to start trying to get back on posting my videos a little more regularly, but tell me what you want to hear, because I think I have ideas about what to talk about, and then I'm like, that's dumb, and then I just don't post anything at all. So input would be great. Message me, comment, something. Tell me what you want to know. I'll tell you what I know. I mean, as long as it's Plymouth Brethren related, I don't know anything about anything else. Anyway, have a wonderful day. Enjoy not being in church all day like the brethren are. Bye. Good morning, friends. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who commented and reached out. Thank you for your kind words and ideas. I've jotted them down, keeping track of them, so I will get to them, I promise. But for today, for my PBCC topic, since the news stories are so out there right now, I decided to talk a little bit about how the brethren feel about public opinion, publicity, I don't know what the word is, but anyways, the brethren are really, really secretive to the point that, when I was young, it was very much like, yes, people will want to ask questions and will want to know about us, but they don't understand, so it's just best to not engage. It's best to not answer. And they very much believed that people that left the brethren and spoke about the brethren were extremely bad. Those were the really, really bad people. Going to the next level of hell. So along these lines, when I left the brethren, in the letter that I left my family, I had said, I'm leaving because I don't agree with the brethren anymore. I don't believe in a lot of the practices that you're subscribing to. But I still want a relationship with you. I still want a connection with you. And don't worry. I won't say anything bad about the brethren, because at that point, I was still so brainwashed that I couldn't really imagine a time where I would feel brave enough to speak out about the brethren. Obviously I've kind of gotten past that point. But that was genuinely how I felt. And I think at this point I'm probably considered an apostate by the brethren. That's the level that they label those of us that speak against them. But my family wasn't talking to me or having anything to do with me anyways. It wasn't like I blew up a relationship with them to talk about it. And I figure at this point, if just one thing I say resonates with someone that's still stuck inside to the point that they start questioning things and possibly leave, then it's 100% worth it. Because the reality is, it's all true. I wish it wasn't, but it is. And along with that, with all these news stories that are out there right now, I can guarantee that within the brethren, I can literally hear what is being said, you know, that the quote-unquote position is under attack, that the brethren are facing extreme persecution, and I'm sure they're even tying this to Revelation, saying that, like, at the end times, true believers will face extreme trials, and that's what they're facing right now. That's how they roll. So I just wanted to explain that a little bit, that to them, like these news stories that are out right now, the podcasts, the publicity they're getting, they're not liking this at all. They want to push their RRT charity. That's what they want publicity for, but that's really not the whole story, and I think everybody deserves to see the whole story. Also, one final note I just wanted to touch on in part 3 of the news story that just came out today. It referenced my young daughter, and I am not aware that I have a young daughter, so I just wanted to clarify that. I do not have any children. Perhaps the reporter was referring to my cat? Probably. Anyway, just wanted to clear that up a little bit. Hey everybody! Almost forgot to do my video today, so I thought I'd better do it really quick. So for my PBCC topic today, I don't know if this is really a PBCC thing. I mean, it's kind of associated, so I'll throw it in there. But I just wanted to touch on, I've had some people over the years, when I'm talking about things related to the PBCC, say to me, when are you going to move on? Like, you're not in there anymore. It's time to let it go and move on. And I just wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit, because truthfully, I think I have moved on. I am married. I have a family, friends, a good job, a good circle, and I live a good life. But with that said, I can't pretend that the first 21 years of my life didn't happen, because I tried that for the first 10 years after I left, and the crash that followed, and lots of therapy, tells me that that's not maybe the way to handle it. So I am going to keep talking about it, because the reality is, too, that all of my family is still in there. With the exception of one aunt and one uncle, all of my family is still trapped in this cult, still brainwashed. And so I will not stop talking about this, because I want to be very clear that as long as I'm talking, there is hope that someone is going to hear what I have to say. Someone within that group is going to hear what I have to say, going to think about what I'm saying, and it's going to grow. And they're going to say, hey, I can have a life too. I can be free. I can think for myself. So I don't really know that there's a moving on button. There's a moving forward button where you actually live a life. But moving on, I don't really know what that looks like. And I don't know if I'll ever know what it looks like. And I think that's okay. And I also think if you've figured out how to move on from a huge chunk of your life that still has your family removed from you, then I'm really happy for you, truly. But I haven't, so I'm sorry. I'm going to keep talking about it. I'm going to keep talking about the brethren. I'm going to keep talking about their issues. And if you don't like it, that's 100% you're right. You don't have to watch these videos. You don't have to listen to me talk. I mean, I talk a lot, so that's going to be a challenge, but I just want to put that out there. So anyway, that's all I got for you today. I'll be better tomorrow. Maybe. Hopefully. Good morning. For today's PBCC fact of the day, I'm going to talk about alcohol and the brethren. So, as I'm sure you're aware, the brethren love their alcohol. Starts at a very young age. I was first offered alcohol in front of my parents, just very normal, when I was 13. And by the time I was 17, 18, I was drinking alcohol every day, to the point where I was working at that time, so I'd give my mom money, and she bought me my very own bottle of port wine and blackberry brandy to make sure that I could have a mixed drink of those two every single night. And I did for probably about, well, up until I left at age 21. I had at least one 8-ounce glass of blackberry brandy and port wine mixed every night. On the weekends, when you'd go out to someone's house for supper on a Sunday night, it was very normal to be offered a drink, and my drink of choice was Canadian and Diet Coke, and no problem to have 2 or 3 of those at age 17 or 18. So, yeah, I didn't really even realize that was weird until after I left the brethren. That's how common it is. And it's not healthy at all. Shocker. There have been a lot of issues with people dying from alcohol-related diseases. And then, of course, there's the vehicular accidents, tragic accidents relating to brethren and their drinking. There's just one that happened a few months ago in Ohio. A 26-year-old brethren man actually used to live in this area. I babysat him and his twin sister a lot when they were little. And he was drinking, well, I shouldn't say he was drinking. His blood alcohol limit was over the legal level, and he got in an accident and he killed 4 people. And I wish I could say that was an isolated incident, but it's not. Alcohol is a huge issue, and it's something they should be taking far more seriously, but, you know, they would rather focus on calling out those of us that are telling the world their problems and telling you all how awful we are. That's something to worry about a little more than a 16-year-old with a drinking problem, right? Anyway, I think it's a two-sided issue. I think part of it is people drink to forget about their problems, to pretend like everything's fine. And it's not. But they also drink because it is a peer pressure thing. The brethren are some of the most keeping up with the Joneses kind of people that you will ever know. If one person does it, the next person has to. And alcohol was a very peer pressure thing. If you didn't drink, you're a weirdo. What's wrong with you? If you didn't drink a lot, you're a weirdo. So yeah, not real great situation, in my opinion. One weird thing, and I don't know if this has changed, but at least when I was still in, clear alcohol was frowned upon. You were not supposed to have vodka, gin, or clear rum in your house. I think they can now. I mean, it's probably another corner the Lord turned, you know how those go. But it was like, when I was growing up, it was like, you know, wine and brandy, Canadian whiskey, bourbon, scotch. Oh, gotta have the Johnny Walker on hand. Yeah, very weird. Anyway, there you go. A little bit about alcohol. Good morning, friends. So today for my PBCC fact of the day, I am going to talk about the white envelopes. And if some of you are going, what are we talking about with white envelopes? There's recently been a series of articles in some newspapers, and there was a few references to white envelopes. And this comes from on the first Saturday of every month, unless the first Saturday falls on like the 7th, then it has to be the last Saturday of the previous month. I can't remember. There's a whole thing. But anyways, usually the first Saturday of the month, the brethren have what is called care meeting. And it is usually held early in the morning, although, you know, the Lord might have turned a corner on that. It might be a little later now, but it used to be when I was in the brethren, it was at 6 a.m. And it was the meeting where the brethren locally, in each of their individual places, gave away what money they had collected. So on Sunday mornings at their Lord's Supper meeting, they have collections. And everyone is expected to give money. Some of this money is used for expenses for like the meeting rooms, like, you know, propane or electricity or things like that. However, there is whoever's in charge of the money for that place keeps track of it and says at the beginning of this care meeting, we had this much at the beginning of the month, we got this much in, we spent this much on this, this, and this, and we have this much ready to give away. And so once it is a known fact how much is ready to give away, then people, and by people I mean men, can suggest who and how much is given. And invariably, a significant chunk, like larger than most, is given to the great man, currently Bruce Hales. So, growing up in the small community that I did, we didn't have a ton of extra money to give away. Like, we usually gave away about, I would say, $800 to $1,000 every month. And the majority of the gifts we gave were $50. But to Bruce Hales, it was like $200. And this is usually a cash gift. It is tucked in a white envelope and given to someone who will be traveling to a meeting, because there's monthly meetings everywhere. It will be given to the next person and the next person until eventually it makes its way to Bruce Hales. And just imagine, from the hundreds of brethren localities around the world, some of which are a lot bigger and have a lot more money to give away, just imagine how much money Bruce Hales gets in gifts every month. And of course, that money that they're giving away at their collections on Sunday morning, that's a gift. It's a charitable gift. And what's given to Bruce Hales is a gift. So it's very nice. Thousands of dollars every month. So it's also usually other important men will get given gifts too. Like if you're higher up in the brethren leadership, you might get $50 or something like that. Generally speaking, women do not get gifts. My mom was one of the very, very, very few women that actually got gifts. And I'll talk about why she got gifts tomorrow. Hi everyone. Getting back to yesterday's topic about PBCC care meetings, the white envelopes, the gift giving. When I left you yesterday, I was talking about the fact that women rarely, if ever, get gifts from other localities. However, my mom did. And the reason why is a little bit complicated, but I'm gonna kind of go off topic for a hot second. So the great men have always had their meetings, whatever you want to call them, published in what is called ministry. And the brethren are all required to buy it. Usually it comes out like quickly in what is called white books, and they're these little paper booklets, but then it comes out a little more formally in specific ministry, and it's color-coded for each great man. So like, you know, John Darby's was this color, Frederick Raven's was this color, James Taylor's was this color, etc. And of course, it's a handy little moneymaker for the brethren, because each set of ministry costs a small fortune for the average household. So that works out well too. But anyways, all of this is to say that all meetings are recorded. There's a tape recorder picking up every single thing. So back in the day of Jim Symington from Neche being the leader, his meetings were recorded, and immediately afterwards, a tape was handed off to my mom, and she was a very, very fast typist, and she would quickly transcribe the meeting, and it would be sent over, actually, back up. It would be handed off to my grandpa Seed, Wilbert. He would edit it, and it would be quickly sent off to the Bible and Gospel Trust in England to be published, and off to the saints it would go. So every poor soul that missed out on the live version of hell got to read about it. Lucky them. So anyways, this was something that my mom did in the early morning hours. It was, I guess, happening when I was born, but I don't really remember it because he died right after I was born. But like all of my siblings' early years, my mom would talk about, she got up at 4:30 in the morning, she typed until 6:30 when the kids started waking up, and then she would do her thing all day long with the kids, the housework, everything else, go to meeting that night, come home, she'd type for about an hour, she'd go to bed, she'd get up at 4:30 in the morning and do it again. And because she typed all of Jim Symington's meetings, not just his local ones. She typed them when he like traveled, everything. They all ended up in her hands. And this was considered a great service to the brethren. And so she was considered very special because she did this great service. And so she did actually get gifts from other localities for her service. And in later years, long after Jim Symington had passed, like this was probably when I was 15, 16, she was contacted. Some new recordings were found of meetings of like John Hales and other great men, and they were found to have never been transcribed. And like, how sad, we've been missing out on all this wonderful knowledge. And so she started back up again. She was back to typing, transcribing, sending this off to England. And so she once again was special and started getting money again. It was never a lot, but I feel like, you know, $25 here and there from random places. So, I mean, it was something. I mean, that was all the payment she got for doing it. It wasn't like she got a paycheck or something silly like that. I mean, she's a woman. What else does she have to do? Whatever. Anyway, the only other time that women sometimes got gifts is if they were what was called an assembly widow. And if you're saying, what is an assembly widow? It's because that's a weird term, and I'm aware of that. An assembly widow is a woman whose husband was either kicked out of the brethren or chose to leave the brethren. So the husband is still alive. She's not technically a widow, but she's a widow of the assembly because her husband isn't part of the assembly. And so assembly widows were often given gifts. I shouldn't say often, it wasn't often, but occasionally given gifts, especially if they were fighting like a custody battle, like where the husband had left the brethren and was then fighting for custody of the kids. Then gifts would be given to that woman to help fight for custody, to make sure that the kids stayed within the brethren. So there you have it. That is the final story on brethren and their gift giving and the white envelopes. There you go. Good morning, everybody. So today for my PBCC fact of the day, I'm going to talk about something that's fairly near and dear to my heart.
I want to thank all of you. I've been getting so many messages and comments asking for different topics, and I have such a long list now, and I love it. And I promise I will get to what you've asked about, I promise. But for today, I want to talk about something the PBCC don't do, but yet they take full advantage of. So I, today, have just finished donating platelets. I donated blood on Wednesday, so I wasn't eligible to donate blood again, obviously, but I was able to donate platelets. I am also a registered organ donor, and these are things that I am very proud of. I had a dear friend who passed away almost 4 years ago from cancer, and she needed platelets a lot while she was going through her treatment. And it's something that you can't just buy those. Somebody has to donate those. And the brethren, unlike Jehovah's Witnesses, they are happy to take blood transfusions. They will take platelets, but they aren't going to donate, ever. It's not a fear of needles, by the way, which I understand. Some people have that. Some people have a complete fear of blood. Some people have a medical condition that causes them from being unable to. I get it. There's a million reasons why you can't donate. But for the majority of people, top of the list that they can't donate isn't usually that their church tells them they can't. They also will accept organs from other people, except hearts. I remember when I learned that the first time, like being like, okay, so if your heart is bad and someone worldly dies and their heart is a match and would work for you, you can't take it because their heart isn't pure. And so then you wouldn't be pure? Got it. Makes total sense. So anyways, they will gladly take blood, platelets, organs, except the heart. But they aren't going to offer those up. Those are big things, life-saving things. And again, like I say, I understand. There's a million reasons why people can't donate. However, your church telling you you can't, just usually not one of them. Another little fun tidbit about the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. There you have it.
Good morning, everyone. So for today's video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Brethren and public assistance, health insurance, etc., etc. It's kind of a multi-parter, I guess. So I've been asked a lot of times over the years, how do the Brethren manage to get like SNAP or EBT? This is a like food stamp program in the US. How do they manage to get fuel assistance, like money to help pay for fuel oil or propane for heating their homes? How do they manage to get all these public assistance programs, but yet they seem to have tons of money? Like, is the church helping them hide their money? How is this working? And truthfully, I don't have a ton of knowledge about this. Like, my parents were never on any of these programs, and I don't really remember them being a super common thing. With that said, it would not shock me at all if this is happening. You know, I can totally see here on your taxes, like, show that you made this large charitable donation to their school or church or you name it, and so therefore it drops your adjusted gross income nicely, and so maybe you would qualify for these programs. That would not shock me at all. The Brethren manipulating a public system for their benefit would be just right on course. That would be typical. So kind of along those same lines then ties in with health insurance. And funny thing, when I was probably like 13, 14, I remember my parents applying for a program. At that time it was called Minnesota Care. It was, obviously I lived in the state of Minnesota. And medical assistance wasn't really a thing so much then. It was just Minnesota Care, but my parents didn't qualify because they were over income. But my one sister did qualify because she was like 20 and filed her own taxes, and it showed she didn't make enough. So she qualified. So she was on this program called Minnesota Care, which was like super cheap health insurance that paid for everything. And it was perfectly fine. She was on it for a year or two. But the funny thing about it was at that particular point, the brethren were not supposed to have health insurance. And yet it was like a common practice. There was like, my sister was far from the only person that was on this. And it was like, looking back on it, I think, so you weren't allowed to like go out and purchase your own health insurance plan, but yet you could be on this public assistance program? Sure. Makes total sense to me. So like when my niece and nephew were born, like my brother and sister-in-law paid for their births out of pocket, 100%. Not a dime came from any insurance. And that was with any medical bill. So like growing up, I really didn't go to the doctor that often. Like we went for our like initial well child checks and stuff like that. That was probably very cheap. But I was actually born in Canada because for one thing, it was quite close to where I live. But for another thing, with the exchange rate, it was a lot cheaper. And that was pretty typical of a lot of brethren born in my area around my time. Grew up in the U.S. I'm a U.S. citizen, but I was born in Canada. Weird. Anyways, right as I was leaving, health insurance was starting to become a little bit of a thing. Like the Lord turned a corner, you know, as he does. And health insurance suddenly was becoming like, oh, we should have this. And obviously, I think part of it wasn't a huge deal because in other countries, they have health insurance like government provided, but the US not so much. And it was becoming obvious that like these medical bills are not sustainable. Like how do you pay for a surgery or something like that? Like it's an insane amount of money. And so suddenly the brethren figured out that, hey, we should get into the health insurance world. And much like a lot of other things, we'll sell this through our company, you know, the Universal Business Team or whoever, and it will be a program that we offer to the saints, but of course we're going to make bank on it. And if I remember right at the time, it was like the most useless insurance known to man. Nobody had ever heard of it. It was stupid. I don't know if now they have like normal insurance. I don't know how that works. I'm sure they're still trying to figure out a way that it can be a moneymaker for their schools or their business organizations, I'm sure. But anyways, that is kind of the story with the brethren and health insurance. That's why they would never accept it. If they did work for someone other than brethren that offered health insurance, they would not take it. So very weird, but once again, another handy little thing that the Lord turned a corner on. Now they can have health insurance. So nice. Good morning, everyone. So for today's PBCC video, I have been asked a few times about why the brethren use all these gift cards or gas cards and what the deal is with them. So this is actually a fundraiser for the school, and they are generally called script cards. They come from a script company, that's S-C-R-I-P. And I'm not really sure who first figured out this was a fundraising program, but once one brethren locality figured out it was a moneymaker, they all jumped on board because that's how they roll. So how it would work is my brother actually was in charge of the script sales for our local area. So he would contact this script company and order all these gift cards, and it basically depended on the retailer, what they would offer. So this script company would say contact, I'll say Old Navy, and say, what kind of a fundraising deal can you offer us? And Old Navy would say, we can do 5%. So then the script company would buy these gift cards, say $100 gift card, but they're buying it for only $95. And they're going to sell that card
to my brother on behalf of the brethren for $95. However, my brother is then going to turn around and sell it to the brethren member for $100, and it's worth $100. So the brethren member gets their full value, but my brother only paid $95 for it, so the school gets that $5 difference. And you might think, oh, well, it's not that big a deal, but over a lot of different households and a lot of different gift cards, it could add up to hundreds of dollars very quickly. And so the gas cards, where that came from was one of the script cards was Citgo, and Citgo had a gas station in our area, and I think it was 2%. So like on every gallon of gas, 2% was coming back to the brethren, which added up fairly quickly. And I remember it being a huge crisis when it suddenly wasn't going to be a Citgo station anymore. It was just going to be like a privately owned place. And I can't remember, I know my brother went and talked to the manager, and I can't remember if they sold them themselves giving the discount, or if the other way they would do it is there was a Box Tops for Education credit card. And of course, this was after the Lord turned a corner on credit cards, so they could have those. And so you got 1% back of all your purchases went to the school of your choice if it was put on this Box Tops for Education card. So like anywhere that didn't offer script cards, but was say a popular place that the brethren went to, my brother would use his Box Tops for Education card, go and buy all these gift cards, and then at least they got 1% of those sales. And they were even smart enough to capitalize on the brethren's alcohol addiction. He went to a local retailer in our area and managed to purchase gift certificates from them. And that gentleman probably made a killing. I think he gave 2%. So like if he bought a $100 gift certificate, it was costing $98. But I mean, we went through thousands and thousands of dollars, and that particular owner of that liquor store was getting all of the brethren's booze sales in that area. So lots of money for him. It ended up being a good deal for him. I don't know if this is quite as common as it was like 20 years ago. It was really a big thing for a while, but I don't know if it's still quite as big of a thing. But it was a good moneymaker for the brethren for quite a while. And you know, it's all about the money. Hi everybody. So for today's PBCC video, I am going to talk about a topic I was actually just chatting with a friend of mine about this morning. We were kind of talking about deaths, and I was saying how like it's kind of hard for me to think about the fact that if one of my family members were to pass away, it's unlikely that I would be notified in a timely manner, at least. I might find out, but it might be a week or two down the road. And that's kind of hard to think about. You know, losing someone in a more permanent way than I've already lost them and not even being aware of it. But anyways, that kind of segged into funerals. And I've done a video before on the weirdness of the brethren funerals, but apparently I missed a couple pieces because she had no idea. So if you live in one brethren locality and a family member lives in another brethren locality and they pass away, you don't go to their funeral. So like for an example, say you're a brethren girl, you get married and you move to Chicago because that's where your husband is from. And a few years down the road, your mom, dad, sibling, whoever back in Winnipeg passes away, you don't go to the funeral at all. And it's the same thing for weddings. You generally don't attend a wedding if you're not from that locality. So like my sister that got married right before I left the brethren, she would not have attended my other sister's wedding because my oldest sister was living in Seattle with her husband at the time, so she wouldn't have come to the wedding. And that's just normal, right? I just think it's another control thing. Along those kind of lines, also, there generally is not, no, I shouldn't say generally, there is not sympathy cards. I literally had no idea about sympathy cards until I left. I remember like the first funeral I went to, I I didn't do anything with the sympathy card. I didn't know I needed to, and I was mortified. And it still is something that I have to like really remember and think about, because I'd never heard of such a thing. And like, you didn't do wedding cards either. You could do a wedding gift, but like a wedding card, no. Like there was no box for cards or something like that. So anyway, there you have it. A little more info on the PBCC. Good morning, everyone. So for today's PBCC video, I am going to talk about their little grocery stores, Campus & Co. So full disclosure, I am not the most knowledgeable person on this topic, because these actually came about after I left. They were starting, there was like little mini stores when I left, but it was nothing like it is now. So Campus & Co. is, and I know this will come as a shock to you, a fundraiser. Yeah, almost like everything's all about the money, isn't it? I know, weird. Anyway, Campus & Co. is a private grocery store. Only Brethren members can access it. The average community member cannot just go in there and shop. I think like the one in Neche has like a keypad on it. You have to enter that to get in there. I know that, like especially in these rural areas like where I am, like this definitely impacts the local grocery stores, because suddenly you have like, you know, 50, 60 households that aren't buying nearly as many groceries from these little grocery stores because they have their own. And I have heard, I don't know if it's true, but I've heard that it's also quite common for them to shop at the local grocery stores and buy sale items in huge quantities, and then they take them to their little store and resell them at the normal price. So they're making money, but of course they're still hurting that small grocery store, which they're such good neighbors, aren't they? Good people. Anyway, I have also heard, again, I do not know if this is true, I'm hoping that someone will chime in and fill in some more of the details, that some of them have liquor stores in them. I'm really curious if they have liquor licenses for these. I would love to know more on the liquor side of things. I mean, because again, much like money, alcohol is their second favorite thing. I don't know, it's just weird. So yes, this is a moneymaker for them. This is part of their deal, and one more way to just kind of keep money in their pockets instead of going to someone else. There you go. That's all I know about Campus & Co. So today is a PBCC twofer, simply because I had a funny experience last night that I just had to share. So it's quite amusing to see how the Brethren will almost all wave at my husband, who was never Brethren. But me, I'm a little more hit and miss. Little bit less likely to get waved at. And of course, Blake thinks it's hilarious because he's like, man, they're sure a lot friendlier when I don't have you in the passenger seat. Obviously, we live in a small town. Everybody waves at everybody. It's a thing. But last night was pretty hilarious because we were driving by newly purchased, being renovated, whatever you want to call it, future Brethren McMansion. And lots of local Brethren are there regularly working on this project. And I wanted to see how it was progressing because I'm a nosy jerk and that's what I do. And so we drove by and we were in my husband's work truck, and there was this one Brethren guy, actually cousin of mine. He was right out near the street, and so my husband, you know, was waving just like he normally would, and I actually had the window rolled down, and so I was like not very far away, and I was waving nicely because I'm a nice human. And it was so funny because this Brethren guy puts up his hand to wave, and it was like you could see the second that we made eye contact and he realized it was me. Whew, that hand went down so fast. Gone. No. And I said to Blake, I was like, do you suppose that, like, if they wave at me, that like, there's an invisible connection, and so I'll pull them to hell with me, and so that's why they can't wave at me? I don't know. But anyways, I mean, if you don't laugh, you'll cry, right? Hey everybody. So today for my PBCC video, I don't know that this is really so much an informational thing, kinda. So I'm not at my regular job today. I'm at the business that my husband and I have, and a salesman stopped in. You know, one of those guys that likes to sell you life insurance or things like that. And I've met him before. He's been in here once or twice. But today, when he stepped into my office, he happened to see I had one of the newspapers from the articles about the Brethren that were in the Fargo Forum. He's like, ooh, a cult. Cults. Lots of rules, and they change all the time. I'm like, wow. It's like, you know, the Brethren or something. How cool. So I just said, yeah, I was actually in that particular cult, but I'm free. Yay. So, okay, cool. Sit down, start talking, and he's like, he's like, I feel like I've asked you this before, but he's like, I'm just going to ask again. He's like, are you any relation to Kurt Seed? And I said, yeah, he's my brother, actually, but I said, still in the cult, and FYI, doesn't talk to me, and also probably won't admit that he knows me. He's like, well, actually, that's true, because he said about a month ago, I was visiting with him, and I said, do you know Beth Seed? And he said, no. I don't know if you remember, a few months ago I shared, like, the Brethren take photo albums, and there's pictures, and underneath people's pictures it says who their kids are and who they married and whatever, and underneath my parents, my name wasn't listed, and I think I said something along the lines of, like, yeah, I literally am dead to them. And I literally am dead to them. It's not a joke. And I'm smiling, because if I don't smile, I'll probably cry, because, like, really? You can't even acknowledge me to a random sales guy who knows nothing about the freaking cult? You couldn't just say, oh, yeah, she's my sister. Couldn't do that? Also, I thought the Brethren were pure and wonderful, and you just lied. Happy Thursday, friends. Hi, friends. So today for my PBCC video, I am going to talk a little bit about how the Brethren seem to kind of think they're above the law, or the rules don't always apply to them. So recently, a young man in Australia was convicted because he was driving drunk in an accident that ended up killing his younger brother and cousin, I believe it was. It's really sad. Yes, he did wrong. Yes, he deserves to be punished for it. But now he's not only going to prison, he's being withdrawn from, of course, because he can't be part of the Brethren. And so in one fell swoop, he's losing everything and everyone he's ever known and going to prison. And yes, he made a very bad choice, but also he was just doing something that he's seen lots of Brethren members do over and over and over and over again. I mean, he's 100% a product of his own upbringing, but because he had this accident, this terrible thing happened, 2 people lost their lives, and yes, he's facing the punishment he deserves, but he's also now not qualified, not worthy to be a member of the Brethren. So he's dealing with that on top of the guilt he's probably facing and going to prison. I remember when I was young, a young man in England had hit a girl who I believe was biking or rollerblading or something on a side street and killed her. And I can remember having special prayer meetings to pray that he would not be convicted, because yes, you cannot be Brethren and be in prison. And the Lord did not turn a corner in that case. The guy was convicted of hitting and killing this little girl, because it turns out that there are consequences for our actions. even though the brethren don't really feel that way. I knew of one very close by situation where a young man was driving way too fast, and I was actually told by an attorney that the father came into the room and said, "Deputies and everyone present, you know, what do we need to do to make this go away?" Yeah, that attitude is just not real great. I also recently learned of my nephew. Apparently has a golf membership and can golf, which, side note, made me really giggle because golfing used to be terrible and you certainly couldn't have memberships to somewhere. So I think that's funny, but also he was golfing at a time when people under 21 weren't supposed to be on the course. And when he was told to leave, he left the spot where he was, but he just went to another spot on the course. And when he was told to leave again, because he could not be out there at that time, he's like, "You're not making me feel welcome here." And the person talking to him said, "You're not welcome here. You aren't supposed to be here right now." But they genuinely don't think that rules apply to them. And that did not always be the case, I don't think. Because I feel like I was raised to be pretty respectful of my elders and pretty respectful of people in authority. And somewhere along the line in the last 10, 20 years, that has just really gone out the window for a lot of people. It's like they just feel like they are better than that and they can make their own rules, thank you very much. And it's like, no, you really can't. Like, laws still apply to you, rules still apply to you, and throwing money at things isn't necessarily going to make them go away. So I think there's some rude awakenings coming for some of them. Anyway, there you have it.
Hey everybody. So a fun new tactic that I've noticed that the PBCC seem to be using is if someone questions them on anything or they get pushback on something they want to do or are doing, suddenly they're facing discrimination. I say this because I'm thinking of, I just heard about my nephew who was on a local golf course, and he was out there during ladies' night, which, for anyone who doesn't know, after 7:30 p.m., only ladies over age 21 can be on the course. I don't know that that's the thing everywhere, but it's pretty common where I live. And when he was told he couldn't be out there, his response was, "I'm not feeling very welcomed here." Yeah, you're not. You and any other 19-year-old male would not be welcome. This is not about you being brethren, so shut up. But I'm also referencing it about this. See above my head? I'm not good at the green screen thing, so I'm not going to try and point, but church member and application proponent Bill Wallace told the meeting, "I can't ride a broomstick and I don't own a cauldron," while claiming that it was religious discrimination that was behind much of the opposition to the development. The development in question is a new church, grocery store, childcare center being built in an Australian neighborhood. And you might think, well, what's wrong with the church, grocery store, and childcare center? Oh no. It's the PBCC, so of course the general public can't use any of those things. And most of the people complaining about it were saying, hey, this is not going to be inclusive to the majority of our neighborhood. Pretty much none of us will benefit from this. So why would we want this here? Like, this is useless to us. Which I think is fair. I'm not really feeling the discrimination thing. I'm thinking that this is much more about like, hey, we actually can't benefit from this, so why should we want you here? But no, it's discrimination. So that'll be the next thing. Anything against them, more persecution, more discrimination. They suffer. Hey everybody, so for today's video on the PBCC, I'm going to talk about the fact that when you're in the PBCC, you get to live at home until you get married. Yep. So if you're 35 years old and you haven't found Mr. or Mrs. Right, you're still going home to mommy and daddy's every night. Lucky you. I can't imagine. That sounds terrible. Every time I see some of these poor people, I'm just like, ugh. I mean, it sounds awful. So yeah, guys that aren't married will buy houses so they're ready. Even if they don't have like a future wife, they're buying a house. So like in the small town where I live, currently I think there's like 5 houses that are owned by unmarried brother and guys who, as far as I know, aren't even planning to get married. And they have these nice, beautiful, big homes. The weird thing is, it seems like sometimes some of them can like spend some time there, like maybe a night or two a week. They're allowed to, but then you see them back at dad and mom's. It's very strange, and I don't understand. I'm like, oh, did you get permission to go and watch TV at your own house? You don't have to watch TV at dad and mom's tonight? You get to have a sleepover with yourself at your own house that you've owned for a few years? I don't know. It's hinky. Isn't it? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's great. Ugh, it sounds terrible. But in the meantime, I just think it's really kind of not great in like these small towns, because here we have like 5 houses that are nice, lovely homes that could be housing families that are sending kids to the public school or any number of other things, supporting the town in some way, and instead they're tied up sitting there empty with no one living in them at all. And like one of them that I'm thinking of, like it was a really nice house, and the guy that's owned it, like he's owned it now for a number of years. I'm like, there's like a board over a window in the garage, and like he's letting the shrubs get all overgrown, and it's just like such good neighbors. Good morning. So for my PBCC video, I'm going to do a quick follow-up on yesterday's video about brethren living at home until they get married. So one weird quirk that I didn't even think of when I was doing my video, and then someone brought it up to me in a message later. So yes, when you are single, you must live at home with your parents. Unless if you get married and your spouse dies, then it's perfectly okay for you to live on your own. Whether you have kids or not, then you can live on your own. Whether you're a guy or a girl, it's okay. I guess once you've been married, doesn't matter for how long, but then you're qualified to live on your own, I guess. It's very confusing. I haven't found a spot in the Bible where it talks about all these rules specifically, but I'm clearly missing it, because like here I am, not still in the brethren. So I think it's the part where Bruce Hales just has control and say over everything, which, spoiler alert, does not exist. I mean, it's so random, the things that they do. But anyways, there you go. Okay, so I guess I'm gonna do 2 PBCC videos today, because I have to rant. I just saw a thing where like 2 or 3 young brethren guys in New Zealand were arrested for animal cruelty. And I don't know. I feel like animal cruelty is like next level psychopath. Like, what is wrong with you? Not okay. 0 stars. Do not recommend. But they like think nothing of it. Like, it's no big deal. And I'm like, I've talked before about the fact that they don't allow pets in the PBCC. You're not allowed to have pets. And it's like animals mean nothing to them. I knew of several brethren individuals that would think nothing of literally trying to hit a dog or a cat that was running across the road. Why? Why would you go out of your way to try and hurt an animal? Like, I will nearly kill myself swerving to avoid a squirrel, and I don't even like squirrels. You'll get withdrawn from, probably, for associating with me. But you want to hit someone's dog or cat? No problem. No big. I don't like this. I don't like it at all. Like, are there no standards? Like, they pretend there's standards. But their standards are seriously skewed. Good people indeed. Okay, I think I'm done ranting for today. Bye now.
So for my PBCC video today, I kind of struggle with which topic to pick. And this is kind of off the beaten path of what I've been talking about, but I was thinking about it last night, so I decided today was the day to dive into education a little bit deeper. So, brethren and education has, like, many things changed a lot over the last couple decades. So, you used to be able to attend public school. Like 100 years ago when I started school, I was able to go to kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade in public school. But then we had like a one-room school that kindergarten through 8th went through. We had one teacher. It was tied to a public school, but only brother and kids went there. And then after 8th grade, I was homeschooled. And this was for a lot of kids in my generation. And I was, I think, one of the lucky ones because my mom actually took it seriously and she taught us. Like, we didn't get a free ride. No, we had to do the schoolwork. It was annoying, to be honest, but now I'm kind of thankful to have an actual education. But now, things are different. We welcome one school global. Doesn't it just sound, brethren? By the way, side note, they're really into LinkedIn. That's like their social media, and I just giggle every single brethren profile I run across. There's like some key terms they use, like streamline is one of them, and I'm like, oh, did the same person like come up with the same script for all of you guys? Because, like, come on, be original. Can we come up with some different words? No, they are all going to streamline your things. All your things. All of the things. They're streamlining. But anyways, so One School Global is literally their, like, worldwide school system. And they hire teachers, worldly teachers, because, like, none of their people are actually qualified because they're not allowed to go to university, which I'll touch on their quote-unquote university in a little bit because that gets me a little hot. This might have to be a two-parter if I'm going to get into that. But anyways, One School Global. I don't know about all the campuses, but I know about the one like right here where I am. And I swear it's like they cannot keep a teacher for more than a couple years. And I have heard from so many of these teachers that like, first year, oh yeah, you know, wonderful sunshine and rainbows. And the second year it was like, I can't do this. I can't work for them. Like, the kids don't have any respect, which I talked about the other day. I don't get that. Like, that's a new thing. I swear. I think. I don't know. But like, there's just so little respect for women. That's really hard to accept. And it's just sad. Like, it's really fallen apart. And like, these schools, they're literally not allowed to have non-brethren kids in these schools. I learned from an administrator that there's an actual script that they have to read if people ask for their kids to attend school and they aren't brethren. And like, the kids wear uniforms that cost a small fortune. And yeah, I would just like to know exactly how much these kids are actually getting out of this education. Maybe it's a lot, but I feel bad for all the teachers that go there thinking like this is going to be a normal teaching job. It's not, sadly. Like, it is not. Yeah. Okay. So tomorrow I'm going to talk about their quote-unquote university, because that one just gets me wild. Good morning. So for today's PBCC video, I promised to talk about universities. So this is just one that makes me shake my head. I mean, they all kind of do, but ugh. So if we back way, way up, I feel like in the like 50s, 60s, they actually were allowed to attend university. And by they, I mean men. I don't think I ever heard of any women. But there was some that actually had like an accounting degree or doctors, and they were legit. They actually had their degrees. But somewhere along the line, the Lord turned a corner and they could no longer go to university. However, now they claim they have their own degrees. So UBT, which is their universal business team, or as I like to call it, the scam, where they make brethren businesses buy all this information from them to supposedly make their businesses better. Basically, it's where they learn that term streamlining that they love to use everywhere, left, right, and center. They're streamlining it all. They now offer, and by offer, I mean push, people to go for an ABM degree, Advanced Business Method. It costs like $16,000 to $20,000 to get this degree, but it only takes like, I don't know, I forget how many months. I read somewhere how many months, but it's like way shorter, and they basically come out of it feeling like they have 20 years of experience and they're only like their second year into working. And I mean, they basically have a Harvard level education with this MBA that's actually an ABM that, let's be real, sadly, if they walked into any legitimate business in the world and handed them this piece of paper, they would be laughed right out of the building. This is not a legitimate thing. And I'm like, you are literally actually telling these poor suckers that this paper is worth something. And I actually saw where someone that was in had messaged this lady that was out, that was saying like, hey, you know, we do have this degree and it's like amazing. And like, yeah, I did it while I was working full time. And I mean, like, yeah, I did have to put in like 50-hour weeks to try and get this done, but like now I am set and like, it's amazing. And I'm just genuinely trying to correct misinformation. You poor, sad, deluded fool. It's not real. It's not a thing. It's just another way to get your money, and it's not worth the paper it's printed on. So then, one final piece to this rant. Sometimes I like to go wandering around LinkedIn, or as I like to call it, the Brethren's Facebook. For anyone who doesn't know, LinkedIn is basically like a network for professionals. And I have to laugh. There's like brethren women on there that their profession is homemaker. Okay, cool. Not really what LinkedIn is for, but I get it. That's how you like connect and learn things, because it's basically like Facebook for business. But I went hunting around, looking at different brethren's profiles. and I found one of my cousins. And he lists on there, under his education, mathematics from the University of North Dakota. Excuse me while I just go bang my head against a wall, because if he has a mathematics degree from the University of North Dakota, then I have an accounting degree from the University of North Dakota. Just because you took courses from the North Dakota Division of Independent Study, which is, yes, associated with the University of North Dakota, does not mean you have a degree. Those were high school level classes, and you don't have a degree from the University of North Dakota. But it looks good on paper, doesn't it? And so, like, when you're going to sell your jobs and you tell your client, look me up on LinkedIn, they're like, wow, this person really knows their stuff. They have a degree. Like, yeah. I love it. Okay, that's what I have. I might have more to share later, but that's what I got for now.
Hey everyone. So, quick little PBCC blurb. Not really a topic, but I'm throwing it out there anyway. So, obviously, you hear me on social media a lot talking about the Brethren. And I just want to clarify. I'm sure that it seems like they still consume my every waking thought, because 90% of what I post on social media is about the Brethren. But, and I know this will come as a shock to you, not everything on social media is the whole picture. I promise I allocate a very, very small percent of my day, a very small percent of my brain to the Brethren. And the main reason why I do post as much as I do is because I'm really hoping that it reaches people that are still in the cult. I know that they're watching, a lot of us, and I just really want it to sink in with them that there's a way out. But I really don't like to allow the Brethren to occupy a lot of my time or a lot of my brain, because I went through a phase where I did spend a lot of time spiraling down a rabbit hole, going after different things, different practices, different people. And I learned very quickly that it will make me a very angry, bitter person. And I didn't escape a religious cult to be an angry, bitter person. So, I just wanted to put that out there. Yes, I'm sorry. A lot of what you're going to see me posting is stuff about the PBCC. But that is a tiny little piece of the whole picture. And the whole picture is pretty darn good. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Hey everyone. So for today's PBCC video, I am going to talk about the Brethren practice of shutting up or withdrawing from, which is essentially their practice of shunning, if you will. So in the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, if you do something to like break the rules, you will get, usually to start with, shut up or confined. It basically means you aren't allowed to attend church, but you plan on coming back. Like, they plan on allowing you back, restoring you is what they call it. And it basically means, like, yes, you did something wrong, but after a certain amount of time, you will have had time to think about your actions, and you're going to feel very bad, and you're going to apologize, and you're going to come back. And usually, when people are shut up or confined, it doesn't last super long. When they're withdrawn from, a little more serious. They may or may not be planning to come back, and they may or may not be allowed to come back. Like me, I'm withdrawn from, and I'm not sure what it would take for the Brethren to welcome me back. I am 100% certain that there will never come a day when I want to go back, but I am probably not real welcome anyways, because at this point, I have performed the ultimate sin, which is speaking out against the cult. How dare I? Yeah, here I am. Oops. Anyways, it's a horrible practice, in my opinion. Like, for example, when I was 8, my parents were confined. Not really sure what they did that was wrong, but they were confined, and so me and my siblings were sent to live with other brethren. It's quite common. Sometimes an entire family will be shut up, the children will stay with them, but then they can't have any contact with, like, grandpa, grandma, cousins that are still in the brethren. It's this awful kind of, like, in-between place where you're not in the brethren, as in you can't have contact with any brethren, but you're not out either. So you're not really supposed to have contact with anyone that's not in the brethren either. It's a really lonely position. And so when my parents were confined, at the time that it happened, my grandpa spoke very harshly about this. He did not want my dad to be confined, and my grandpa actually ended up getting withdrawn from over this. So in one fell swoop, I lost my grandpa and grandma and my dad and mom. And I'm not sure why, but my dad and mom were confined for actually 3 years and 3 months, which is a heck of a long time when you're 8 years old and almost 12 by the time they were restored. Yeah, it's a messed up practice that really takes a huge toll on families. And that part of my life forever changed me. I mean, there's not even a question. The things that happened during that time, like, you don't get over those things. It's a pretty sick practice. Icky. Like a lot of cult things. Anyway, that's what I have for you today. Cults. They suck. All the time. Good morning. So today for my PBCC video, I thought I would talk a little bit about when communication with my family changed after I left the Brethren. So some of you know, some of you maybe don't know, I have been out of the Brethren for almost 17 years now, which is wild. When I think back to those early days, like 17 years sounds unattainable. So it's pretty amazing. Okay, I'm done. I'm done being emotional about that part of it. Okay, so it's been almost 17 years that I've been free. But when I first left the Brethren, initially I had given my parents a cell phone number they could reach me at, and I was being absolutely inundated with phone calls and voicemails. I've said before that the little voice that says, "You have one new voicemail," is 100% a trigger for me, because in those days it was relentless. My voicemail was full all the time, Brethren, all over the world. It was awful. And so I don't remember exactly what point. Some of those early days are a little bit of a blur, but I don't think it was more than about a couple weeks, and I was like, I can't live like this. And so I changed my number, and I gave the new number to my mom and told her, "You cannot share this with anyone outside of my immediate family. If I get a phone call from anyone outside of my immediate family, we'll not be doing that. Nope. And she was okay with that, but she asked if we could stay in contact because she wanted to make sure I was, like, alive and well, basically. Yep, okay. So for the first number of years, we talked twice a week. And by talked, I mean, like, I would call first thing in the morning. "Hello, how are you? Good. Have a good day."
that was the sum total. There was no information shared, anything like that. It wasn't a big conversation. And that went on for quite a while, and then it went to once a week. Every Monday morning, I would call, hello, how are you? Have a good day. Talk to you next week. Bye. Okay. If she wasn't home, I just left a message that I was checking in. And then, it was around 2019, 2020. I started kind of having a breakdown because I hadn't really dealt with the fact that I left the brother, and I kind of tried to pretend like that part of my life didn't even exist. And for anyone who has done that, you know it only lasts so long. And started going to therapy, started kind of processing things, and I started seeing things a little more clearly. And I started questioning my mom a little bit more, pushing back a little bit. And that was when it all started to fall apart in the communication. By the end of August of 2020, August 26th to be exact, was when I got an email from my parents saying they could no longer communicate with me because it was obvious that I was in such opposition to the brethren's position. Side note, I really hadn't changed my views at all. The only difference was I had started pointing out the flaws in a lot of their beliefs. And the minute that happened, they couldn't communicate with me anymore. So to me, it was a pretty clear sign that we can talk to you. It's okay. But if you question us, we're done. So now I don't really have any contact with my family. Very, very minimal. I still send cards on Mother's Day, Father's Day, my dad and mom's birthdays. It's hit and miss whether they acknowledge them at all. They don't send them to me. So that's how excommunication worked for me. And it was weird too. For all those initial years when I wasn't pushing back, I wasn't confined. Apparently, I found out later, I guess I could have just strolled back in at any time. But then, when I started questioning things, I was very quickly confined and then withdrawn from. Funny how that works. Yeah. Don't question the brethren. That was the message I got. In case you haven't noticed, I haven't stopped. So, I don't plan to anytime soon. I will keep shoving it in their face every chance I get that your belief system is messed up and so twisted. But anyway, there you go. Good morning, everyone. So for today's PBCC video, I'm gonna try and lighten it up a little bit. I feel like my videos lately have been a little gloomy, and so I'm like, gotta try and find something more good. So I have been asked a ton of times over the years, is there anything you miss about being in the PBCC? And it's taken me forever to answer this question because I had to really think about it. And truthfully, everything I could come up with that I missed about the brethren was actually that I miss things about my family. I miss my family, I miss my mom's cooking, I miss hanging out with my sister, you know, things like that. But as far as the actual PBCC, and did I miss anything about that, I've really struggled to come up with anything, which is probably a good thing because it's a cult and I shouldn't miss it. Like, I don't miss going to meeting every night. I don't miss being told what I can wear, how to do my hair, where I can live. The list goes on and on. So I thought for a long time, is there anything I do miss? And I finally came up with one thing. One. So during the Brethren meetings, they do not have any musical instruments at all, but they sing hymns, usually a couple times. On the Sunday main meeting, 3 times. And so where I lived, the group of brethren that would get together on Sunday was like 500-600 people. And the singing was pretty awesome. I have to say, when you have like 500 or 600 voices singing holy, 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 it's pretty cool. Like, that many voices raised in worship, it was cool. It was, like I say, I think the only thing I miss. So there you have it. That's what I got for you today. So one more quick PBCC thing. I have had so many people comment, message, things like that, say, you're so strong, you're so brave. And I just want to clarify something. I am not strong or brave. I am just doing the best I can, making the best decisions. And there are so many people out there that are so much stronger and braver than me. People that have lost their moms, dads, children, siblings, for real. Mine are still alive. And so I have hope. And as much as it hurts because I grieve them oddly every day, I also still have hope. Until the day I die or they die, that hope is going to stay alive, that someday they will get out of this cult. So really, I'm not strong or brave compared to so many other people out there that are so much stronger and so much braver than me. I appreciate you guys saying that, but I just wanted to clarify that I'm not. I have been blessed with so many people in my life that have pulled me through some really rough times when I assure you there was nothing strong or brave about me. So really, I'm just a girl being pulled along by a lot of other awesome people holding on to hope. That's me. Nothing strong, nothing brave. I promise. Good morning. So today for my PBCC video, I'm going to talk about how I knew that I had been kicked out of the Brethren, confined, withdrawn from the good stuff. So as I mentioned before, this did not happen until I'd been out of the Brethren for quite a while, like about 10 years, maybe even a little longer, probably more like 12. It was in 2020, after I started questioning the Brethren a little bit more. And one day in the fall of 2020, I got a message from my mom. Could I call her? Sure. We weren't that far out from the time when I still was calling them regularly, but they had cut off contact with me at this point. But I called, and my mom answered, and, you know, hello, how are you? And then she said, Dad is here, and he would like to talk to you. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I'm happy to talk to my dad. And so he came on the phone, and he said, Beth, I'm just letting you know that the Brethren have decided to confine you. You are now shut up. Cool. I'm not in the Brethren, so that term really doesn't mean anything to me, but got it. I'm now officially on the bad list. Not the baddest list, but I'm getting there. So, it's fine, life goes on, and in January of 2022, which was about a year and a half after they had confined me, I got an email from my dad one morning. It was before I went to work, and it said, Beth, can you give me a call? So I called him, and he answered, and he said, I just have to ask you, are you happy with the path you're on? And I said, yes. And he said, you no longer seem to want to walk with the brother. And I'm like, oh, I gave it away the last, 13 years, give or take. Yeah, I'm not wanting to walk with the brother, and you are right. And he said, well, because of your position against the brother, and we have decided to withdraw from you. And I said, okay. And then I just said to him, I said, that term doesn't mean a thing to me. I'm not in the brethren, and so it doesn't mean anything. That's your term. But okay, thank you for letting me know. And then after I hung up with him, I thought, I'd like to know a little more. So I emailed him and said, can I just ask, what is the basis for the brethren withdrawing from me? And he said, it's 2 Timothy chapter 2. And I said, okay, is there a specific verse or just the whole thing? And he responded, 2 Timothy 2, verses 19 until the end of the chapter is our charter. 2 Timothy 2, there's a reference to withdrawing from evil. And so I am evil, according to the brethren and my family. I mean, I didn't know they could sit on the judgment seat. But who am I? I'm just an evil girl. So, anyways, that is how I knew. And since then, I don't have a lot of contact with my family at all. Just an evil girl out here doing evil things, like being married to a worldly guy and having a worldly job and worldly friends and doing worldly things. Terrible. Anyway, there you go.
How can you support Get a Life podcast? You can donate internationally via PayPal at www.paypal.me/getalifepodcast. PayPal also has a QR code that can be scanned. Or donate to our Get a Life podcast GoFundMe. If you're in a high-demand religious group and need help, please go to oliveleaf.network. To share your story or be a guest on the show, email info.getalife@proton.me. Check out www.get-a-life.net for Get a Life merchandise, books, and ways to support or get support. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to Get a Life, and comment.